Hey y'all, welcome back to Salty Tarot. We're just going to do a quick little reading with this one. So we're just going to dive right in and see what's going on with you and your person. I think I'm going to start with this. We're going to be using the Crow Tarot today and these archetype cards. And this is the Audacity deck, and it's been packed away. Oops, got the guidebook sneaking in there. Well, I just pontificated at length about the breast pump, and and then I went on and pulled two cards from the archetypes deck after that, only to discover once I brought out the tarot that we were not recording anymore. So I've been obsessively checking in the last reading, but I did not obsessively check in this one, and now I regret it. But the breast pump. So the breast pump is about what drains us. And so the question was, what are the overall energies in the connection at this time? I gave a lengthy bit of a description of what it is like to be, a literal breast pump. So if you're a female-bodied person and you have breastfed and or tandem breastfed, which is even more intense, which is my experience. And so it's like you are, and even if you're a body of any other gender bottle feeding, a creature that is 100% need, 0% malice, is not there to mess up your life, but is there to need. Like they just need, you have to sustain them. And so if you're breastfeeding, you're literally sustaining them from your own body. And so like you can call it the life force, but it's like, the substances you consume, by that I mean food. That came out weird. But the nourishment that you take in is literally getting sapped back out by like into your breast milk and into the bodies of other creatures, or body for most people. In my case, there were two for most of that time. And tandem breastfeeding is, it's just amplified, right? Like there's a whole other dynamic going on where it's like it's calling this up for me because there are two pumps here, and you just feel like you're being like, and I don't mean drained in the sense of exhausted in like it's not all negative, of course, like hopefully for most of us we're there voluntarily. It's not always the case and has definitely not been the case through human history, but in any event, if you're a person who has chosen to have a baby and to breastfeed them, that's of your own volition, then you have an investment, a very strong investment in keeping that very fragile, very oblivious tiny little creature alive. And you're doing it from the wealth of your own body and your own abundance, those Empress energies, like you're directly feeding your abundance into this creature, and they're obliviously, consuming it by instinct and growing and being alive because of it, with absolutely no knowledge of what they're receiving or what it's taking out of you. In any event, so as energies of the connection, this is likely an indication that you might feel like you might be doing it with so much love and so much, givingness. That is not a word, but I think you get what I'm trying to say. And yet I just realized my microphone's been way over and not at a right angle. Oh my goodness, I hope you've been able to hear me through that whole last reading. Anyway, hi. Maybe that's better now. So you might be giving of yourself just so willingly and selflessly, and and knowing that that's what has to sustain the connection, and you might not feel that it's noticed, appreciated, reciprocated. Like if you're a parent nourishing a baby that has just been born of your body, that baby's not expected to reciprocate. I mean, they reciprocate by being hella cute and, teaching you so friggin' much about yourself. Like that is the gift. And they do that unselfconsciously without knowing they're doing it. But two human adults in a connection, there needs to be reciprocity. There needs to be giving on both sides, and the ability to receive on both sides. And so if you're in a dynamic where one person is just giving, then this card is a call to look at your boundaries. Consider what boundaries might need to be set, where there might be some overgiving, where potentially there's not reciprocation happening. Do you feel like if you detach those pumps, from your own nipples, is the connection going to be self-sustaining at that point, or is it going to flounder, expire? And if it is, then, is it your responsibility to keep nourishing it? And or maybe it's time to set some boundaries around how much you're giving to it. I then went on and shuffled out 2 archetype cards. They came through. This was your person's energies, and this was your energies. So for your person, we've got the Rebel with the light attributes of challenges authority to effect social change, rejects spiritual systems that do not serve inner needs, and shadow attributes of rejects legitimate authority out of anger, rebels out of peer pressure or fashion. And for you, we've got the Destroyer, which was quite funny because I now wish the shuffling had been caught on camera, because it was in the middle of the deck. It was nowhere near, it just came out entirely of its own, and it came out in the last reading, is why it's funny. Light attributes, releasing what is potentially destructive, preparing for new life. In this reading, this is referring to your energies. In the previous reading, it was referring to how your person was seeing you, or the collective's person was seeing them. Shadow attributes, intoxication with destructive power, destroying others' dreams or potential. So this one came out in the upright, so releasing what is potentially destructive and preparing for new life. So, if this has been dynamic, whoa, that was quite a, I have no idea where that came from. So if this has been destructive, then, or potentially destructive, then you're maybe, again, removing those cords. And side note, don't cut cords if you're doing an energetic decording. Just release them, pluck them off your nipples very gently and release them out into the universe for it to recycle the energy. And so preparing for new life. So maybe there's, a detaching from sustaining what has now hopefully got its own legs and can feed itself, or at least be equally nourished by another human in ideal circumstances, or maybe a village of them. And maybe you're gestating new life within you at this time, and I'm being metaphorical. So maybe you've got, new things that you want to put your focus on. Maybe you literally have had children and there's a shift in your relationship. Your person seems like, the person in your heart seems like they're possibly working through some anger issues, or just kind of being an ego and being a bit of a rebel. Maybe they're feeling cut off from your nourishment and they're having a reaction to that. So that's as far as we got. And then I wanted to check the timing and discovered that we were not timing anything at all. So we're using the Crow Tarot. Still recording. Cool. We're going to look at what I'd like to look at is, what does the connection need at this time? What does the connection need in order to be self-sustaining? So if you were to detach the breast pump, what is it that the connection needs in order to become self-sustaining? What will carry this connection? Okay, 3 cards. I can take that. Let's do it. So 10 of Wands in reverse is about putting down your burdens. So again, that would just be, that's kind of like the breast pump amplified, right? So that's a very similar message. It can also be sort of like being overwhelmed by your burdens and, just finally capsizing from them. But I'd say in this context, because we were in this energy, it's talking about letting go of what you've been carrying. So setting it down and basically trusting that it will either get carried by the other or it will not. And, it's like, in order to find that out, in order for the connection, for whatever best serves to occur, you need to set down your burdens. The Hangman in reverse is, of course, about coming out of a pause or a reflection period and potentially taking action. And this is about coming out of confusion or coming out of a situation where there's been many options. In connections, it can refer to kind of player energies or having a lot going on in the upright. And in reverse, it could be sort of like narrowing down, focusing. But it could also be about feeling out of options. But I'd say as a nourishment for the connection. So there needs to be action, there needs to be you putting down your burdens, and there needs to be, I'm almost getting the sense that this is your energies and your person's energies, and that there's maybe been a pause in the connection. So if they have been in player energies, then them coming out of that and sort of focusing in and figuring out which of these cups, like, are they going to choose the snake, or are they going to choose the beautiful lotus flower? Are they going to choose the pumping heart? Are they going to choose death and desiccation? And there's some choices will lead to good outcomes and some will lead to less good outcomes for the connection, since that's what we're looking at. But in any event, there needs to be action, and your action is to put down your burdens, I would say. And their action is to sort of come out of their confusion and choose. If these actions are taken, what's the potential for the connection at this time? Where is the connection heading? What's the potential outcome for the connection at this time? Assuming the actions are taken by each party to get there. Clarify Queen of Cups in reverse, please, Spirit. One more clarifier, please, Spirit. This is a completely different deck, but these energies are really coming through very similar to the last reading. It's so interesting. Except for we've got the Devil here. Both of these came out in reverse in the last reading. So Queen of Cups in the reverse is like blocked emotions, blocked, sort of not letting the feelings flow. It can be about being petulant or sort of in like squirmy kind of. In the last reading, it was coming through as like whiny energies. If that resonates, your person's almost coming through like they're kind of in like an immaturity. So then we've got the Fool in reverse, and that can be, of course, coming out of those nascent beginning energies and moving into something more mature. But it can also be talking about like being very stuck in the, in like the negative side of like naivete, or just like emotional, like together with the Queen of Cups in reverse, I'm seeing this as emotional immaturity. And, it kind of looks like if the relationship is kind of stuck in this emotionally immature place where the feelings are not being communicated, coming through, flowing, then it looks like there's a very kind of destructive attachment to that state of being in the connection at this time. And the thing about the Devil is, of course, that usually the one chained is able to remove their own chains, but it's like they can't see that, or they aren't motivated to do that. They're just kind of enthralled by their situation. And I'm just kind of laughing about the goat's skull on a crow. It works, but it's kind of a funny image. So it's almost like the connection is feeling stuck at this time. So it's, even if those actions are taken, it's like there's something some kind of emotional immaturity that's like, it's just very much blocking the connection and not allowing the energies to flow. What is your advice? What's your advice in this situation? What's the advice for the collective, please, Spirit? Let's clear these away. Got 8 of Wands in reverse, 10 of Wands coming through in the upright, King of Swords, and the 3 of Pentacles. Bottom of the deck, we've got the Empress in reverse, and I'll mention that because that's a very similar energy to the breast pump. That's basically the breast pump. So Empress in reverse is talking about overgiving, like stopping overgiving in this case. So if you have been the sustainer of the connection, it's time to stop. And so this is looking like there's like a slowdown or a hesitation regarding continuing to carry those burdens. So previously we were seeing that your action is not to carry the connection anymore. Very strong message of that. It's coming through several different ways, kind of repeated throughout this reading. And so maybe like starting to slow down with what you're carrying. So, give up one piece and then perhaps another piece is what I'm seeing here. And then there's a need to commit to truth and boundaries and to work as a team. So rather than you carrying the entire thing, your advice is to set some very firm boundaries that there's going to be teamwork henceforth. So no more imbalanced overgiving, you just carrying the situation. Like from this point forward, you need to communicate and you need to be firm that it's going to be a team effort. That's your advice here. What's our time like? Yeah, we're way over time. I would like to get just maybe I'd like to get one of these guys. We'll just shuffle out one card for you from this deck because I've been so excited to have this deck in my roster. Whoa. We've got Cycles, 1919. And it says, karma, warning, judgment, influence, power, cycles, changes, rebirth. Karma will be paying you a visit. Release the need to control because you cannot force things. Learn your lessons so they don't repeat in the future. Make some space for new experiences. So that message has come through a few times. Yeah, so maybe this is almost like the negative interpretation, like I've been talking about you sustaining the connection, but this is talking about like, if you have been sustaining the connection, then you have been the one controlling the situation and like trying to sort of keep it afloat. And this is saying, there's a kind of a negative side to that in that you're over controlling the situation, not just over giving, but in over giving, you're sort of over controlling. And this is a message to just let it be what it is, whatever that is, so you might set this intention and be very clear with your boundaries, but it does take two. And if the other person is not picking up what you're putting down, then, at that point you need to release and make some space for new experiences. So, don't immediately rush in to pick up, the burdens again and sort of sustain the connection. Like at that point, you really need to just be letting cycles play out and, what happens, happens. So that's kind of a hard one to end on. I feel like we need something to soften. Maybe we could get a little bit of Hermit Tarot. I don't think I shuffled this after the last reading, so there's definitely something peeking out the wrong direction there. I'm going to resist the urge to pull it out, though, because it would be from the last reading. Okay, so did we have any channeled messages from your person? I don't know if you saw that, but it keeps poking out. It says, I dream about you a lot, too much. And under that we have, I want to get you drunk. I guess we'll take them. They're not from the last reading. I don't know why they're facing the wrong way, though. Any other messages from your person? The person in your heart. That's, you know, that's that devil energy. Wait. And I worry about us a lot. So that's, you know, the sort of message to, again, put down your burdens and give it up to spirit. You know, if not your other person, if not your person. Got, I'm sorry. I think so, yes. So if you've asked them a question and you are right. And then we've got, I hope you'll wait for me. Coming out very close to wait. Okay, we're going to leave it there, my friends. Thanks for being here. And don't forget to like, subscribe, press all the buttons, do all the things. Put a poppy in the comments if you've gotten this far. That would be lovely. Okay, mwah. Take care. Bye.